stop. Whatever you are doing right now, stop it completely. Put down your phone. Pause whatever you are watching, because if you are a dual citizen or if you are even thinking about becoming one, what I am about to tell you could change the entire course of your life, forever. And I mean that literally. Millions of Americans right now are sleeping peacefully at night, completely unaware that their second passport, that little booklet they worked so hard to get, could be ripped away from them. Gone, just like that. And the scary part, the terrifying, jaw-dropping, heart-stopping part, the United States government may have been planning this for longer than anyone wants to admit. So buckle up. This is going to be a wild ride. Let's start at the very beginning. Because to understand where we are going, you need to understand where we have been. And the history of dual citizenship in America is not what you think it is. Not even close. Most people assume that dual citizenship is this perfectly normal, perfectly legal, perfectly accepted thing in the United States. They think the government is totally fine with it. They think Uncle Sam just smiles and waves and says, "Hey, sure, go ahead, have 2 passports, we don't mind at all." But here is the shocking truth that will make your stomach drop. The United States has never officially recognized dual citizenship. Read that again. Let it sink in. The most powerful nation on the face of this earth, the country that calls itself the land of the free, has never once looked at dual citizenship and said, "Yes, we officially endorse this." Never, not once, in the entire history of this country. In fact, for decades, the United States government did everything in its power to destroy dual citizenship, to eliminate it, to make it illegal. They wanted your loyalty and they wanted all of it, not half, not split between 2 flags. All of it. Back in 1868, Congress passed the Expatriation Act, which declared that every person has the right to give up their citizenship. But here's the twist. The government also believed that becoming a citizen of another country meant you were automatically giving up your American citizenship. Gone. Done. See you later. Don't let the border hit you on the way out. Then came the Bancroft Treaties, named after George Bancroft, who was the Secretary of the Navy and later became the United States Minister to Prussia. Yes, Prussia, that's how old this is. These treaties were agreements between the United States and foreign countries that said if an American naturalized in your country, they lose their American citizenship. Period. The end. No debate. No appeals. You chose them. You lost us. Can you imagine? Can you even imagine living in that era? You fall in love with someone from another country. You move there. You become a citizen because you have to, because that's what life requires. And boom, America says, "Sorry, you're dead to us. Your passport is canceled. You are no longer one of us." This was the reality for millions of immigrants and emigrants throughout the late 1800s and early 1900s. Says the United States was absolutely ruthless about this. They did not play games with loyalty. If you wanted to be American, you were only American. Full stop. But then something happened. Something that started to crack the system wide open. And that something was the Supreme Court in 1967, and this is a year that every dual citizen should have tattooed somewhere on their body, because it literally saved their right to exist as a dual citizen. In 1967, the Supreme Court of the United States made a decision in a case called Afroyim versus Rusk. And this decision was so explosive, so revolutionary, so utterly earth-shattering that it flipped everything we knew about citizenship completely upside down. Baez Afroyim was a Polish-born American citizen who voted in an Israeli election in 1951. That's it, he voted. And the United States government said, "You know what, you're done. You voted in a foreign election, you lose your citizenship. Pack your bags, Baez, you're statless now." But Baez Afroyim said no. He fought back. He took it all the way to the highest court in the land. And in a 5-4 decision, 5-4 people, that is how close we came to living in a completely different world, the Supreme Court ruled that the government cannot take away your citizenship without your consent. They said the 14th Amendment protects your right to citizenship, and Congress does not have the power to strip it from you just because you did something they didn't like. 5-4, one single vote. One vote separated the world where dual citizenship could thrive from a world where the government could snatch your passport for sneezing in the wrong direction. Think about that the next time someone tells you elections and appointments don't matter. But the story doesn't end there, because even after Afroyim, the government kept trying, they kept pushing, they kept finding new ways to pressure people into giving up their foreign citizenship. The State Department had what they called a presumption of expatriation, which basically meant that if you did certain things, if you served in a foreign military, if you took a foreign government job, if you voted in a foreign election, they would presume you wanted to give up your American citizenship. They would send you letters. They would make you prove you didn't mean to abandon America. They would make your life extremely difficult. And then in 1990, the State Department quietly, and I mean quietly, like a bureaucratic whisper in the middle of the night, they quietly abandoned that presumption. They started recognizing in practice, if not officially in law, that Americans could hold multiple citizenships. They stopped aggressively pursuing people who had naturalized abroad. They stopped treating dual citizens like traitors. And just like that, the floodgates opened. Today, somewhere between 9 million and as many as 20 million Americans are believed to hold citizenship in at least one other country. 20 million people. That is more than the entire population of some countries. These are people with American passports and British passports, American passports and Mexican passports, American passports and Israeli passports, American passports and Italian passports, living double lives, enjoying double privileges, carrying double documents. And for decades, nobody really cared. It was the open secret of American immigration. Don't ask, don't tell, just keep living your best dual national life. But now, everything is changing, and the change is coming faster than anyone expected. Let's talk about what is actually happening right now in Washington, because this is where it gets really scary. This is where your hands might start sweating a little. This is where you might want to grab a glass of water. The political climate in the United States right now is unlike anything we have seen in modern history when it comes to immigration and citizenship. We have an administration that has been the most aggressive, the most uncompromising, the most absolutely bulldozing force on immigration that this country has ever produced. And dual citizenship is directly in their crosshairs. Think about it. Think about the logic from their perspective. If you are someone who believes that America comes first, that American loyalty is sacred, that you cannot serve two masters, then dual citizenship looks like a problem. It looks like a loophole. It looks like people who want all the benefits of being American without giving America their complete and total devotion. And there are people in Congress, sitting members of the United States Congress, who agree with that completely, who have been pushing quietly and not so quietly for legislation that would make dual citizenship either much harder to maintain or outright impossible. We have seen proposals that would require Americans to formally renounce any other citizenship they hold within a certain number of years. We have seen discussions about restricting dual citizens from holding security clearances, which is already a massive issue in the defense and intelligence communities. We have seen proposals to restrict dual citizens from running for federal office, from serving in certain government positions, from accessing certain federal benefits. And with every passing month, with every new executive order, with every new hardline immigration speech, those proposals get a little less fringe and a little more mainstream. Now, let me break down the specific threats. The actual concrete, this is real and it could happen threats to dual citizenship in America, because there are several of them and they operate on different levels and you need to understand all of them. Threat number 1. Federal legislation to formally ban or severely restrict dual citizenship. This is the nuclear option. This would require an act of Congress, and it would likely face immediate constitutional challenges given the Afroyim decision we talked about earlier. But here is the thing. The makeup of the Supreme Court has changed dramatically in recent years. Cases that were once considered settled law are no longer as settled as people thought. If a case challenging the right to dual citizenship reached today's Supreme Court, could we be absolutely certain how they would rule? Absolutely certain, can we? I'll let you sit with that question. Threat number 2, executive action to restrict dual citizens from government employment and federal contracting. This does not require Congress. This can happen with a stroke of a pen. We are already seeing the groundwork for this being laid right now. Security clearance reviews, background check requirements, loyalty tests that, while never called loyalty tests officially, function exactly like loyalty tests in practice. If you work for the federal government, or if your employer has federal contracts, your dual citizenship status could become a serious career-ending liability almost overnight. Passport restrictions and travel limitations. What if dual citizens were required to always enter and exit the United States on their American passport? What if violating that requirement, which technically already exists as a policy but is rarely enforced, suddenly became grounds for losing your citizenship? What if the government started actually enforcing the rule that says you must use your American passport when traveling to and from the United States? These are not hypothetical questions. These are things that immigration attorneys are being asked about every single day. Threat number 4, taxation and financial disclosure requirements that make dual citizenship financially catastrophic. The United States already has the most aggressive citizenship-based taxation system in the entire world. Only 2 countries countries on Earth tax their citizens based on citizenship rather than residency, the United States and Eritrea. Yes, the United States has the same approach to taxing overseas citizens as Eritrea. Think about that for a moment. And there are proposals on the table, very serious proposals, to make the financial burden of dual citizenship even heavier, to add new disclosure requirements, to add new exit taxes, to essentially make being a dual citizen so financially painful that people voluntarily give up their foreign passport just to escape the paperwork. Threat number 5. And this one is the sneakiest one, the most insidious one, the one that will get people who never saw it coming. Bilateral treaty renegotiations. The United States is in constant negotiation with foreign governments about all kinds of things: trade, security, intelligence sharing. And in those negotiations, citizenship agreements can be used as bargaining chips. A foreign government could agree, as part of a broader deal, to stop recognizing dual citizenship with the United States. And suddenly, through no action of their own, Americans living in that country could find their foreign citizenship revoked. Not by America, by the other country, because their government made a deal they never heard about. Now let's talk about the countries most at risk, because not all dual citizenships are created equal in the eyes of the current political environment in Washington. If you hold American citizenship in a country that the United States considers a geopolitical rival or a security concern, we are talking about countries like China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, Cuba, Venezuela. You are in the absolute highest risk category. The scrutiny on dual nationals with ties to these countries has never been higher. We are talking about people being investigated, people losing their jobs, people finding themselves in impossible situations where they have to choose, right now, today, which country they are loyal to. And if your answer is not America, America first, America only, the consequences can be devastating. But here is the part that surprises people. It is not just the obvious geopolitical rivals. The conversation has expanded. We are seeing increased scrutiny on dual citizens with ties to countries in the Middle East. We are seeing questions being raised about dual citizens with ties to certain European countries that have policies the current administration disagrees with. We are even seeing whispers about limiting dual citizenship with some traditional American allies if those allies are seen as not being sufficiently aligned with American interests. The definition of who is a security risk when it comes to dual citizenship is expanding, and it is expanding fast. Let's take a moment and talk about some real stories, because this is not just about policy and legislation and abstract threats. This is about real human beings whose real lives are being upended right now. Imagine someone, let's call her Maria, born in the United States to Mexican parents. She has held both American and Mexican citizenship her entire adult life. She works for a defense contractor in California. She has worked there for 15 years. She has a security clearance. She has a spotless record. And one day, her employer comes to her and says, "We need to talk about your clearance. There have been new guidelines. We need you to formally renounce your Mexican citizenship, or we cannot guarantee your position." Maria never thought this day would come. She never had to choose before. And now she is sitting in an HR office being told to choose between her heritage and her career. This is happening right now in America, today. Or imagine someone, let's call him James, an American who moved to the United Kingdom 20 years ago. He became a British citizen because he built his life there. He has British children. He owns a British home. He pays British taxes. And he kept his American passport because he loves America, he visits his family there, and frankly, who would ever give up an American passport voluntarily? But now James is getting letters from the IRS that are so complex, so demanding, so expensive to comply with that his British accountant has told him point blank, "James, it might actually cost you less money to renounce your American citizenship than to keep it." The reporting requirements for his British retirement accounts under American tax law are so burdensome, so punishing, that being American is becoming a financial liability. And there are thousands of Jameses. There are tens of thousands of Americans living abroad who are being quietly crushed under the weight of American citizenship-based taxation, while simultaneously being told their loyalty is in question. Now, let's talk about what you can actually do, because I am not here just to terrify you. Although, let's be honest, some of this is terrifying. I am here to give you information and to give you options. Option 1, document everything. If you are a dual citizen and you want to keep both citizenships, the most important thing you can do right now, today, immediately after this video ends, is document your American identity thoroughly. Make sure your American ties are clear. Keep records of everything that demonstrates your commitment to the United States, where you pay taxes, where you vote, where you have property, where your family is. If the government ever comes knocking with questions about your loyalty, you want a paper trail that makes it absolutely undeniable. Option 2. Consult an immigration attorney. Not a paralegal, not an online forum, not your cousin who thinks he knows about immigration law because he watched a YouTube video. An actual licensed, experienced immigration attorney who specializes in dual citizenship and expatriation law. Because the rules are changing so fast that information that was accurate 6 months ago may already be outdated. The legal landscape is shifting in real time. You need someone who is watching it every single day. Option 3. Understand your rights under the Afroaim decision. The government cannot take your citizenship without your consent. That is still the law. It has not changed yet, but you need to know what constitutes voluntary expatriation. There are specific acts that are considered potentially expatriating acts: serving as an officer in a foreign military, taking an oath of allegiance to a foreign state, being convicted of treason. If you are doing any of these things and you want to keep your American citizenship, you need to understand the risks. Option 4. Think very carefully before taking any foreign government positions. If you hold dual citizenship and you are offered a job with a foreign government, any foreign government, be extremely careful. This is one of the most common ways that people inadvertently trigger questions about their American citizenship status. Government employment for a foreign country is on the official list of potentially expatriating acts, and even if it doesn't automatically strip your citizenship, it can trigger a review process that is incredibly stressful, incredibly expensive, and incredibly disruptive to your life. Option 5. If you are considering renunciation of your American citizenship, and I say this with absolutely no judgment because there are legitimate situations where this makes sense financially and practically. If you are considering renunciation, do it before any new legislation passes that might make the process even more difficult, more expensive, or more penalizing. The current renunciation fee is already $2,350, the highest in the entire world by a massive margin. And there have been proposals to make it even higher. There have been proposals to add additional exit taxes and reporting requirements on top of the existing ones. If you are going to go, it may be better to go now while you still know what you are dealing with. Now let's zoom out for a second. Let's look at this from a completely global perspective, because America is not the only country wrestling with this question. Not even close. Around the world, the pendulum has been swinging back toward nationalism, back toward the idea that citizenship should mean something, that it should be exclusive, that you cannot or should not be able to pledge allegiance to 2 flags without some kind of consequence. Austria does not allow dual citizenship for most of its nationals. Japan, despite being one of the most advanced and globally connected economies in the world, does not officially recognize dual citizenship for adults. India, the world's largest democracy, a country with one of the largest diaspora populations on the planet, India does not allow dual citizenship. China does not allow dual citizenship. Many Gulf states do not allow dual citizenship. So the idea that America might move in this direction is not as outlandish as it might sound to people who have grown up in the relatively liberal citizenship environment of the last 30 years. Historically speaking, globally speaking, a country that does not allow dual citizenship is not an exception. In many ways, a country that freely allows it is. And right now, the global trend, driven by rising nationalism, by security concerns, by the politics of identity, the global trend is moving away from accepting dual citizenship, not toward it. America could be the next domino to fall. Let's talk about the security argument, because this is the argument that the anti-dual citizenship camp makes loudest, and it is the argument that resonates most with ordinary Americans who have never thought about this issue before. The argument goes like this: if you are a citizen of 2 countries, where does your ultimate loyalty lie? If those 2 countries ever came into conflict, and history tells us that even allies can come into conflict, which side would you choose? Which flag would you fight under? Which government would you obey? And for most people, for the vast majority of dual citizens who are just ordinary people living their lives, the answer is obvious. They would be loyal to America. Of course they would. They love America. That is not even a question. But the security community does not deal in most people. The security community deals in worst-case scenarios. They deal in the rare but catastrophic possibility. And their argument is that even if 999 out of 1,000 dual citizens are completely loyal, that 1,000th case, that one person who is not, represents an unacceptable risk if they are positioned in a sensitive role. This argument has been used to deny security clearances, to remove people from government positions, to investigate individuals who have done nothing wrong except hold a second passport. And as national security concerns become more prominent in American political life, and they are becoming more prominent, dramatically more prominent, this argument is getting louder and more powerful. But let's be fair. Let's look at the counter-argument. Because there is a very powerful counter-argument, and it deserves to be heard. The people who defend dual citizenship, and there are many of them, including prominent legal scholars, immigration experts, and former government officials, they argue that dual citizenship is actually a massive asset for the United States, not a liability. Think about it this way. The United States is a nation of immigrants. It always has been. Its greatest strength has always been its ability to attract talent, ideas, and energy from every corner of the world. And the people most likely to bridge the gap between America and other countries, to build business relationships, to share cultural understanding, to serve as informal ambassadors for American values and American interests, those people are often dual citizens. Silicon Valley was built in significant part by people who came from other countries, who understood those countries deeply, and who used that understanding to build bridges that benefited America enormously. The diplomatic community, the intelligence community, the academic community, all of these benefit enormously from people who have deep roots in multiple cultures. If you ban dual citizenship, or even if you make it much harder, you risk driving away exactly the kind of globally connected, multicultural, multilingual talent that has always been one of America's secret weapons. You risk making America smaller, more insular, less connected to the world at precisely the moment when the world is more interconnected than it has ever been. And there is the argument about the diaspora. Millions of people around the world who hold American citizenship contribute to American soft power in ways that cannot be measured on a spreadsheet. They spread American culture. They invest in American companies. They maintain connections to America that their children and grandchildren will carry forward. Strip away their ability to maintain citizenship in their country of origin, and you may also strip away their ability to maintain those connections. Now, let me tell you about some of the specific legislation that has been floated. Some of the actual bills and proposals that have been discussed in Congress, some at a whisper level and some at a shout level, that would fundamentally change how dual citizenship works in America. There have been proposals to require dual citizens to register with the federal government, to create a national registry of all Americans who hold foreign citizenship. On paper, this might sound reasonable, just a little paperwork, just a little transparency. But think about what that registry would mean. Think about who would have access to it. Think about how it could be used. You would be creating a list of everyone in America who has ties to another country. And in the wrong political climate, in a climate, let's say, very much like the one we are currently living in, that list would be a target. There have been proposals to restrict dual citizens from donating to political campaigns, from serving on federal juries, from obtaining certain types of federal loans and grants. The idea being that if you are not exclusively American, you should not have the full privileges of being American. There have been proposals tied to the Restrict Act and various national security bills that would effectively create different tiers of citizenship based on your foreign connections. Tier 1 Americans, pure single citizenship, full rights. Tier 2 Americans, dual citizens, subject to additional scrutiny, additional restrictions, additional surveillance. And while none of these proposals has yet become law, the fact that serious people in serious positions of power are discussing them or drafting legislation around them is something that every dual citizen needs to be paying very close attention to. Let's talk about specific countries for a moment, because if you are an American with citizenship in one of these countries, your situation is particularly urgent, particularly complicated, and particularly dangerous. If you hold American and Chinese citizenship, or if you have close family ties in China, even if you only hold American citizenship, you are living in what can only be described as the most treacherous dual national landscape in America right now. We have seen cases prosecuted under the Foreign Agents Registration Act. We have seen academics, researchers, and business people investigated, charged, and in some cases imprisoned for ties to China that they believed were completely innocent. We have seen the federal government cast the widest possible net when it comes to China-related national security concerns, and many people who were caught in that net had no idea they were doing anything wrong. If you hold American and Russian citizenship, the situation has become dramatically more complex since 2022. If you have Russian citizenship and you are in any kind of sensitive professional position, technology, finance, defense, government, you should be speaking to a lawyer immediately if you have not already. If you hold American and Iranian citizenship, you have been navigating an incredibly complex situation for decades. But the complexity has reached new heights. The question of how you enter and exit both countries, how you interact with both governments, which passport you use when. These are not just bureaucratic headaches. These are questions that can have genuinely life-altering consequences. If you hold American and Israeli citizenship, you are in one of the most politically charged dual citizenship situations imaginable right now. On one hand, the United States and Israel have historically had extremely close relations, and there is no formal prohibition on holding both citizenships. On the other hand, the current political environment around Israel is so explosive, so polarized, that being a dual national puts you at the crossfire of multiple competing political forces that have nothing to do with your personal loyalty or your personal choices. Now, I want to talk about something that does not get nearly enough attention in these conversations. I want to talk about children. There are millions of children in the United States right now who are dual citizens by birth. They were born here, so they are American, but one or both of their parents are from another country, and under that country's laws, the children inherited citizenship at birth. These children did not choose to be dual citizens. They did not fill out any forms. They did not swear any oaths. They simply arrived in the world, and the laws of two countries simultaneously claimed them. What happens to these children in a world where dual citizenship is restricted or banned? Do they have to choose when they turn 18? Do they lose rights in the meantime? Are they treated differently in school applications, in government programs, in future employment? These are questions that no one in the current political debate is adequately addressing, and the silence on this issue is deeply troubling, because the children of immigrants, the children who have grown up between two cultures, who speak multiple languages, who are the living embodiment of America's multicultural promise, these children could find themselves in an impossible legal situation through absolutely no fault of their own. Let me tell you about the financial angle, because I cannot stress this enough for a lot of Americans, especially Americans living abroad. The financial dimension of dual citizenship is becoming absolutely overwhelming. The Foreign Account Tax Compliance Act, known as FATCA, requires foreign financial institutions to report information about financial accounts held by American citizens. What this means in practice is that banks in other countries are increasingly refusing to open accounts for American citizens. They do not want the compliance burden. They do not want the reporting requirements. They do not want the potential liability. Imagine being an American living in France, or Germany, or Australia. Imagine being a dual citizen who has built their entire life in another country. And imagine being told by your local bank, sorry, we cannot have you as a customer because you are American. We do not want to deal with your government's reporting requirements. This is happening right now. It has been happening for years. And it is getting worse, not better. And then there is a report of foreign bank and financial accounts known as FBAR. If you are an American and you have foreign bank accounts with a combined balance that exceeds $10,000 at any point during the year, you are required to file an FBAR. The penalties for failing to file? Up to $10,000 per account per year for non-willful violations. And if the government decides your failure was willful, meaning you knew about the requirement and didn't do it, the penalty can be 50% of the account balance or $100,000, whichever is greater, per account, per year. These are not hypothetical penalties. People have been hit with these penalties. Real people living real lives who simply did not know about an obscure reporting requirement have been financially destroyed by the Internal Revenue Service. Being American abroad is expensive. Being a dual citizen abroad is even more expensive. And the proposals currently being discussed in Washington would make it more expensive still. Let's talk about the renunciation option in more detail, because I mentioned it earlier and I want to give it the serious treatment it deserves. Every year, thousands of Americans formally renounce their citizenship at U.S. embassies and consulates around the world. The numbers have been climbing steadily, and they climb fastest in years when political tensions are high, when tax compliance burdens increase, and when the general sense of uncertainty about American policy reaches a tipping point. To renounce your American citizenship, you have to appear in person at a U.S. embassy or consulate. You have to pay the renunciation fee, which is $2,350. You have to sign an oath renouncing your citizenship, and if you have a significant net worth, you may be subject to the expatriation tax, which essentially treats your assets as if you sold them all on the day you renounced and taxes the gains accordingly. It is not a decision to be taken lightly. It is not something you can undo. Once you renounce your American citizenship, it is gone. There is no take-backs. There is no "I changed my mind," unless you can prove that you did it involuntarily or under duress, and that is an extremely high legal bar. Renunciation is permanent. And yet for thousands of people every year, that permanent, irreversible, expensive step is preferable to the ongoing burden burden, the ongoing uncertainty, and the ongoing anxiety of trying to maintain American citizenship from abroad. That tells you something. That tells you something profound about where we are and where we are headed. Now, I want to take a step back and ask the big question, the philosophical question, the question that underlies all of this. What does citizenship actually mean? At its most basic level, citizenship is a legal status. It is a document that says you belong to a country and a country belongs to you. It gives you rights. It imposes obligations. It defines your relationship with the government. But citizenship has always been more than that. It has always carried emotional weight. It has always been about identity, about belonging, about who you are and where you come from and where your heart lives. And for dual citizens, the question of where your heart lives is not a question with a simple answer. For dual citizens, the heart is big enough to contain two countries, two cultures, two languages, two histories, two futures. Is that a problem? Is it a liability? Or is it one of the most extraordinary gifts a human being can carry? The United States was built by people who came from somewhere else, who brought with them the memories, the traditions, the skills, and the love of another place, and then chose to add America to that love. Not to replace what they came from, but to add to it, to expand it. The question America is wrestling with right now is whether that story, that original, defining, foundational American story, is still the story we want to tell about ourselves, or whether we are ready to write a different story, a smaller story, a story that says you must choose, and you must choose us, and you must choose only us, and anything else is suspect. The answer to that question will define not just the fate of dual citizenship, it will define the soul of America itself. Let's talk about what other countries are doing, because the United States does not exist in a vacuum, and the decisions America makes about dual citizenship will ripple out across the world. Canada, our neighbor to the north, has one of the most open dual citizenship policies in the world. Canada actively welcomes dual nationals. Canada sees the global connections of its citizens as a strength. Canada's approach to multiculturalism and dual nationality has made it one of the most attractive immigration destinations in the world, and a major beneficiary of American talent that leaves the United States in frustration. Australia has a similarly open policy. The United Kingdom allows dual citizenship freely. Most European Union countries, while having their own variations and exceptions, generally allow their citizens to maintain foreign citizenship. If the United States moves toward restricting dual citizenship, it will be swimming against the current of where the most successful liberal democracies in the world are moving. And the people who leave, the talented, globally mobile, internationally connected people who find dual citizenship restrictions unworkable for their lives, those people will go to Canada. They will go to Australia. They will go to the European Union. And they will take their skills, their businesses, their networks, and their taxes with them. America has always been the destination, the place people come to, not the place people leave. If the policies around citizenship become so restrictive and so hostile that people start choosing differently, that would be one of the most significant shifts in American history. Okay, let's bring this home. Let's talk about what is most likely to actually happen in the next 1 to 5 years when it comes to dual citizenship in America. The absolute worst case scenario, a complete formal legislative ban on dual citizenship, is unlikely in the near term. It would face immediate constitutional challenges. It would be extraordinarily difficult to enforce given how many Americans currently hold foreign citizenship, and it would create a diplomatic nightmare with virtually every major American ally in the world. But the moderate case scenario, and this is the one you should be preparing for, the moderate case scenario is very possible, and in some areas, it is already happening. Increasing restrictions on dual citizens in government employment and security clearances, more aggressive tax enforcement on Americans abroad, new disclosure requirements for dual nationals, increased scrutiny on naturalized Americans with ties to certain countries, a growing political culture that treats dual citizenship as inherently suspicious rather than inherently normal. This is not the worst case scenario, but for millions of people, it is disruptive enough. It is life-altering enough. It is life-altering enough. It is costly enough. And the best case scenario? The best case scenario is that sanity prevails, that cooler heads, better arguments, and a genuine appreciation for the contributions of dual citizens to American life win the day. That America remembers who it is and what it has always been. That we pull back from the edge of this particular cliff and recommit to the idea that loyalty and love are not resources that diminish when they are divided, that they grow. But hope is not a strategy, and the best case scenario requires you to be engaged. It requires you to know your rights. It requires you to be informed. It requires you to vote, to advocate, to make your voice heard. So here is what I need you to do right now, before you close this video, before you go back to your regular day. Number 1. If you are a dual citizen and you have not spoken to an immigration attorney in the last 12 months, do it. Do it this week. The landscape is changing fast enough that what you knew last year may not be accurate today. Number 2. Register to vote if you have not already. And if you are an American abroad, register as an overseas voter. Your voice matters. Your specific situation as a dual citizen is directly affected by the people who get elected. Do not sit this one out. Number 3. Get your documents in order. Know where your passports are. Know when they expire. Know exactly what citizenships you hold and what the obligations of each one are. Have a clear picture of your own situation because in a moment of crisis, confusion is your enemy. Number 4. Talk to your family about this. If you have children who are dual citizens by birth, have a conversation about what that means and what options they may face. If you have elderly parents who hold foreign citizenship, understand their situation and what it might mean for them. Number 5. Stay informed. Subscribe to newsletters from immigration law firms that cover expatriation and dual citizenship. Follow organizations that advocate for the rights of Americans abroad. Do not rely on social media rumors and viral videos, including, I say with all honesty and transparency, including this one, to give you your legal advice. Use these videos to stay aware of the issue. Use actual experts to guide your actual decisions. Because at the end of the day, this is what it comes down to. Dual citizenship is not just a legal technicality. It is the story of who you are. It is the story of your family, your history, your heritage, and your choice. It is the story of a world that is connected in ways that no amount of legislation can fully unravel. And whether America decides to embrace that story or fight against it, well, that is the question of our moment. That is the decision that will echo through generations. The people who came before us, who carried their homeland in their hearts while building something new in America, they deserve better than to have their story erased. The people who will come after us, who will inherit whatever we build and whatever we destroy, they deserve better too. So watch, stay informed, be ready, know your rights, and whatever you do, do not lose your passport. I will see you in the next video.